Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today. Welcome in.
Hi.
Thank you for being here on the Finding the Magic Book podcast. We have Shenski. She is a romantasy author. Is it YA romantasy or adult?
Adult.
Adult. Okay. Steamy, not steamy. What is the spice level here?
So it's not completely closed door, but it's not also super spicy. So I would say like 2.5, 3 on the spice level, and that might even be pushing it. I'm one of those people who gets embarrassed still when I see people kissing on TV. So
Well, it's funny on the TikTok spice level is like totally different from everybody else's spice level. And I was like, oh, I write closed door. And they're like, you're a one. I'm like, what? One? No, like two at least. Right. So,
like, oh no, they touched hands. You know, with the genre that I'm in, the time period I picked, touching hands is, a 5.
so tell me, yeah. So your first book is Moonlit. It's part of the Ashton Chronicles series. Tell me the setting, the characters, where are we? What's going on?
All right. So it takes place in Regency era. So it's our own world. I didn't create a new world for this. I just added in a layer of paranormal and supernatural behind the scenes. So you get to experience both the setting of the London Ton along with in Moonlit, you get to go to China, um, because my first male main character is Chinese, and you get to explore some of the mythology from China and um, the setting around there. And then the female lead, she is British, and so you kind of get to see it from an outsider's perspective, which is kind of cool. So, and a personal note, my husband is Chinese, so that's kind of why I went with that way with this book. I felt it was one, my two favorite genres, and two, um, just a really cool way to just get my idea out there, and it wasn't something I'd seen done.
I was gonna say Regency romance, romantasy smash up. I have not seen that yet. So you are on the cutting edge.
Oh yeah, paranormal romance and Regency romance have been my lifelong favorites. So I was just like, let's marry them. It'll be
Yes.
so much fun.
So you said you get an outsider's perspective. Is it written in third person then?
Uh, so it's I mean the outsider in the sense of, you know, Penelope is coming from London Ton. She is the daughter of a Marquess. She has this whole life experience that doesn't really mesh with a rural Chinese clan.
Oh,
So
okay.
you there's differences in, traditions and of course culture, speech, things of that nature. And my one of my big goals was making sure that I was being really truthful about my own experience, and being in a multicultural relationship and how it felt for me to, step into an area where I was a minority, which is not something a lot of Americans, white Americans, I should say, have that experience, but I have. And so I was trying to be really, how to say it, honest with my own experience, but of course, I also haven't seen my husband perform magic yet, though I keep asking him to.
He can magically um, levitate his socks from the floor to the hamper, right?
That would be lovely. Yes, yes. Or I tease him about this. So there's a Chinese style of TV shows or movies called wuxia, which is like magical and monster type things. And without fail, all of them just have to put their arms out and they can, with one single leap, fly up in the air over buildings. And I'm like, honey, how do you do that? Like, show me the ways.
That's amazing. So, what type of magical characters do we get to meet at Moonlit?
Okay, so in the Penelope is a sorceress. She's the daughter of two a sorcerer and a sorceress. Whereas Shen Mingxi is a Huling Jing, which is a fox spirit. So think of it as a fox shifter. I think most people would know them as kitsune for the Japanese nine-tailed fox, because I think I think that's been more mainstream that people would recognize that, or the Korean gumiho. So you also get to meet a selkie, and I'm trying to think very briefly a werewolf in the first book, but I am kind of not limiting myself on what mythology and creatures could show up.
Fun. I was wondering, do the Ton members know that these people have these powers and they're supernatural or paranormal?
So only the Ton members who are also part of the supernatural. I have a built-in failsafe within my world that I don't feel like this is really a spoiler because I do end up describing it, but there is almost like a veil that creates a safety net for any supernatural being isn't going to be seen as supernatural. They're going to be seen as a human, either behaving weird, and if for some reason they're behaving off, but not see like a transformation into a werewolf or something. Now, of course, there's going to be rare instances where things can change, but right now the Tan is just the lovely Tan that we get to see in series like the Sinster series or Bridgerton or something.
Oh, fun. Yeah, I was gonna say if you're on all fours as a fox or a werewolf, that would look a little weird as a human.
Right, right. So, which I can't spoil that, but yeah, that's crossed my mind already.
So when the characters or the love interests first meet, do they know or recognize each other as having these abilities or being these paranormal
Yes.
people?
So, um, in book one, yes, they do. Shen Mingxi is actually sent to investigate a power flare, basically, and there's tells among the supernatural that they can tell each other, like what kind of being this is, unless somebody's hiding it really well. So when they first meet, it's more of like a forced proximity. He goes there as her guardian, but what's the difference between a guardian and a jailer when you're not agreeing to be guarded?
So he
So,
comes from China to London to guard her so she doesn't like get out of control.
not quite. So, the way the world is set up, you have different courts within the Ashen Court um, bureaucracy, for lack of better words. And he is a diplomat who is established in staying in the Paris court and being dispatched on missions from there. And there are portals in my world, so there's no concern about people like having to necessarily take a 6-month trip from China for Mingxi to get to Penelope. but he gets sent after there's a disturbance that they can actually feel he was in Normandy at the time, so he could feel in Normandy from London. And the council sends him to check into it, and he escorts her back to the council. That's, well, there's not a whole lot of politicking with the councils, but there is some, because, that is unfortunately the way life works, right? There, you can't really get away from politics or rules, or, so.
Does the Action Court oversee all the supernaturals then? Is that how it works?
Yes. So it's it's made up of varying members of different species. It's not just, so think of it, the Shen clan, which is Mingxi's family, they have their own small council. Greater East Asia would have their own council, and Europe, and at this time you're talking the early 1800s, maybe in New England or along the east coast of the US would, but South America, all these different places have their own councils with the different species on it, and then there's the main council that oversees them all. So it's kind of like a regional governance, and it helps keep the peace in the regions.
That's a little bit of a hint. So, so that's a little bit interesting, because in other books I've seen, and they didn't really organize by region. They organized more by the type of being they were. And then they would send one representative to like a group so that all the beings could either get along or not get along. Right. So that was interesting that you
Right.
broke it out by geographic region.
Well, I think in that sense, it's really helpful to have, you say we're in London, you're going to have a ton more species, because you have all of these people coming to what is a major metropolis at the time. And then in China, there's not just foxes, there's snake shifters, there's dragon shifters, there's all these different beings. And if, they were all in their small regions, only having, uh, small councils, it wouldn't help the region themselves, or the politicalness of dealing with interspecies relations. So,
Right, that does make sense. Yeah, if you're trying to bring peace locally, especially, and with, how long it takes letters or communication to get back and forth between
yep.
places, and in that time period, that makes sense to me now.
Yeah. So, and I kind of want a world that, I would want to live in. That was my other goal with this. I didn't want it to necessarily be um a place where it had values that I didn't agree with. Like one of the big things that I'm a proponent of is consent. And you're going to see that throughout my series. There is a theme of consent first. So, and basically, this is maybe a spoiler, but if you see somebody breaking consent in my book, you know they're evil.
That makes sense. And so, do you tell the story through the first person, a point of view of Penelope, or no?
No. So it is third person, and you do get both Penelope and Mingxi's points of view. I do try not to overlap the same scenes, because I feel like that really bogs down a reader. But there are things where when I was writing, I was just like, yeah, this has to be from Mingxi's point of view, because of course, even when I'm starting it, they're on, she's in the United Kingdom and he's in France. So like, they're not even close to one another. So I didn't want them to be introduced as the moment that they meet. I wanted people to get to meet Minxi first and kind of see who he was. And before you get to that little spark between the two main characters.
And I went to your website. It does say extremely slow burn. So you're going to torture. It sounds like you torture your readers all the way throughout the book.
So I absolutely do. One of the things I absolutely love about being an indie author is that I had people reach out to me while reading, and uh, one of the things that was said to me is, "Ma'am, why are you doing this to me?"
Like, let's get on with this. Enough is enough.
Right, and I think there's a gentle, like, kind of a art in keeping it slow burn, but also keep the story moving, and to have it reach a natural conclusion instead of um having it be like, the very last chapter and then you're like, I read the whole book for this, so it's not quite that slow. It's slower, but you really, one, it's a time period thing too. You've got this 29-year-old woman who is a spinster, so it's not like, she was, say a widow, because I would handle a story with a widow completely different. And I say that because I know that's, one of the stories in my head right now. So I was trying to kind of stay true a little bit to that time period as well, to not be dumping all over the time period that I was trying to honor.
Right. Yeah, I
Right.
was thinking of that as soon as you were answering the question. I was like, well, that does fit the time period too, because, well, okay, I'm not an expert on Regency. I will go ahead and say that. I have watched Bridgerton, so I have that little experience. But yeah, so it seems like a lot of their romances were mostly slow burn. Like you had, um, you were, what is the word I'm thinking of? You were chaperoned in meetings
Yes.
and all of those type things. So.
Yes, exactly. And so that's why it's kind of fun to have it, Moonlit, be somewhat of an adventure story as well, because I'm able to move her outside of, one, she's 29, and spinsters are definitely held to a different standard, but move her outside of the strict London protocols. I do explore them more in my second book, which is coming out soon. So every book is going to have a little different flavor as to how I am approaching, you know, being meeting the times where they actually were without being necessarily 100% truthful to the times, because I'm pretty sure uh, a Chinese man and a white woman of the aristocracy would not have gone over well in 1811 in England. But in my world, it's perfectly fine.
Well, in Bridgerton, you have a very diverse group of
Yes.
characters. So that was interesting to me. Not being a historian, I didn't know if that was accurate or not. So,
So I read all of Julia Quinn's books, and it's kind of funny because I know that Bridgerton, the show, has changed a lot of things. And it was not as diverse. In fact, there is um one character I know that's kind of looked down upon because he did marry an Indian, like, Hindu woman. So like they were just as racist as we think they were in 1811.
uh,
But I like how Bridgerton really took that away and really made it feel much more human, like to where we are today, and especially, as I said, I'm in a multicultural relationship. I have a son with my husband. I want to believe the world is a better place. I don't want to think that people are going to be looking at my son and being like, oh my goodness,
No, I don't think
So
so now. So but
yeah.
that's my, my take on things. So me, myself, and I. Yeah, I was looking at your website, and that's exciting that you have the second book coming out. I saw that you had some, I don't know if it's the cover art, but you had a wolf represented there. Are we going to have more werewolves coming to this? Where is the setting going? Tell me all the
Yes.
deets, or at least tell me what you can tell me.
So book two, we have a werewolf male lead and a female empath witch. And we are I'm excited because he's not the only wolf that gets introduced. You get to meet his cousin, who is a female as well. So there's, I start building out some of the other species. And I would like to say my take on wolves is a little bit different from the books I've read, which I'm so happy about. But it's kind of neat because they end up going to Chautauqua, which is in New York. It is a small settlement at that time, but um, they are there to fight demons, which, they kind of uh, are going to a spot that's not overly populated at the time because, they want to be able to be wolves too. So we end up there in this book, which I think is going to be fun. And I'm enjoying kind of hopping around the world when I'm writing this too. So like the portals were a necessity for me. So um but there are one of the things that I bring up is Chautauqua County that actually has a history with the Underground Railroad, and it's very briefly mentioned in the book, but I think of it in this way that humans help humans, and bad deeds tend to draw the attention of bad creatures. So when I say that the wolves are fighting demons, they're not going after like, slave hunters. They're going after demons that are mixed in among the slave hunters and stuff like that. So, but it's kind of a cool piece of history because I know it's actually like part part of the truth of the county that I live in. So
Interesting. And so do these characters start in London as well and then decide to go
yes.
to, okay.
Yes, you get a lot more London experience. You get to visit more balls, musicals, garden parties, Hyde Park, things that people who are fans of Regency would be expecting. And like the opera, because that was like a huge thing for them at the time and not having, TV and stuff. So um yeah, would say the first third, almost third to a half of the book is set in London this time. So instead of it's much shorter in Moonlit, but as readers know, there's a good reason for that. There's it's one of those got to get out of Dodge situations, and so. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed bringing Almax, for instance. Like it seems like the most boring place on the face of the planet, and I kind of had fun with that. And how would supernatural people feel being stuck in this very rigid, very proper place? So yes, but again, Regency was one of my huge loves. Like even on my honeymoon, I made my husband go to Gretna Green with me, which is where couples used to elope to on the border of Scotland and England. So it it's I would say most of my research has been reading copious amounts of books about the Regency era myself.
Fun. Can you tell me about your werewolves and how they're different? Does that give too much away?
Hmm. Well, I'm going to, I kind of already told you the veil, so this would be a really good example. So if you've got in a setting that makes sense, right? So it has to be one that makes sense. If the werewolf turns into even their full beast form, a human isn't one going to see them transform, but if they saw them just running through the woods, they would see a normal wolf. They wouldn't have that idea that this was something supernatural.
Okay. That makes sense, right?
So, but my wolves can pick. Okay, this isn't just necessary to wolves, but to my supernaturals, they have two souls instead of one. They have a mortal soul and an immortal soul. So for wolves specifically and other shifters, what that means is they have the ability to be fully mortal form, like a human, a merged form, which I just called the beast form. So I will be releasing fantastic art from my artist about that kind of terrifying transformation. And then the fully animal form, which, so say they wanted to be in wolf form, they can, but if they're battling, you're going to be in beast form, sort of thing. So it gives them a little bit more play with their transformations.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard the two soul idea before. How did that pop into your brain that this should be this way?
Actually, it was that came into play when I was writing The Alpha's Mercy, which is book 2. And I can't really get too much in detail because I will spoil some information, but there's a way that immortals can sever their immortal soul so they can be fully human. And as with all things magical, there's always consequences for that sort of thing. So it really came into big play within the Alpha's Mercy, and specifically with my main character Mercy, and the effect that it has on her life. So
All the good things. Oh my goodness, we're so tantalized now. Well, tell me where we can find you and your books if we're looking for you.
Okay, so for right now, I'm only available on Amazon. I do have paperbacks, ebooks, and I'm available on Kindle Unlimited. So, um, and I think, let's see, yeah, my next book comes out July 17th, which is The Alpha's Mercy. And little secret, I also plan on releasing one more this year. So,
Oh, wow. You must be writing
well,
really quickly.
I do, but it's also after like 30 years of having ideas and not really writing for the past 20, it's all pouring out of me right now where I feel like it's going to eventually slow down, but I'm riding the wave as long as it exists because I've hit writer's block before in my life and I'm like, oh, I know that's going to come, but right now just cruising. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Well, you should. Yes, I get that because I've had those years too, so it's super
that's
exciting.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, and what is your website so we can go there and learn more?
It is nshenski.com.
Great. NSHENSKI.com.
Yep.
I can read on the screen. Like, wait, I do know how to spell this. Oh, I could look at it. And it looks like you have a call for ARC readers, so it sounds like you have a good community. Do you have an email newsletter as well?
I do. The sign up is on my website. I plan on hopefully I haven't even sent my first one out yet because that was one of those things that I was like, oh, I've got to get to this. And then I was like, but I'm writing. So, but right now would actually be a really good time because I'm expecting my book back from the editor tomorrow. So and then I get to work on it for a little while before it goes back for proofreading. So yeah, arcs are actually going out the weekend of June 13th. So
Well, congratulations. Yeah, I did see on your website you're an editor too. Do you think that helps you a little bit, like as far as writing better grammar, like in your first draft, or you just write?
so okay, I am one of those people that wings it with my first, because it's kind of an interesting way with me writing. I'm a systemic thinker, so when these stories come to me, they come to me for with like all the major plot points already like out there. So then it's just a challenge of making sure I get it down. So usually my first draft is my rough draft. But my editing is really more on the developmental side. Like I'm really, really good at catching continuity slips or like when stuff is not immersive. So I feel like it does help me keep track, especially as this world expands. Now, I also am using Excel and Word and all these other tools, but it's almost like there's a filing cabinet in my brain with the information about the world that I can just pluck out, and it is helpful, I think. As far as grammar, I would say that my editor, my line editor, is fantastic, and I love her so much because she definitely helps me bring my writing up to another level. So I'm really blessed in that regard. Because I think it's funny, like it doesn't matter if you're an editor or not, you need other people's eyes on your book.
Right. Yeah, because
So
I can read something 5 times and not see an error, and that's because you know it. You think you know it, and your mind makes it right.
yeah,
So yeah.
yep, yep. I joke about that all the time. My brain is auto-correcting, so
Well, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you'll come back. Email
yeah,
me when you have your next book going, and we'll have you on again.
oh, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.